Hello everyone, and welcome to Autocrat. This is episode 61, Hector and Andromache sitting in a tree.
And if you don't know that chant from, I presume, British school grounds, you won't understand this reference. But the reason we bring it up is because, well, we left off having finished book 5 with a lot of violence and Ares getting put in his place with a divine smackdown. Don't worry, we still get plenty of that kind of thing this time around, but we also get a very tender scene which inspired the name of this episode.
Book 6 opens with Diomedes and the Greeks still fighting. There's a lot of killing that we're not going to go into because lists like this are tedious.
Sure.
Menelaus captures a man called Adrestus, and when Menelaus threatens to kill him, he begs him to spare his life, saying his father will pay for his release. Menelaus is on the point of relenting and bringing him to the ships when Agamemnon shows up. Agamemnon rebukes his brother, saying that nobody should be left alive, not even unborn babies.
Oh good, he's coming off in such a good light already.
It's giving Firstborn of Egypt thing vibes.
Yeah, except here, everyone dies.
Menelaus pushes Adrestus away from him and Agamemnon kills him. Nestor encourages the men forward, telling them not to plunder and there will be time for that when everyone is dead.
I mean, cold, but logical.
Probably even including them.
Yeah.
During the battle, Priam's son Helenus goes to find his brother Hector and Aeneas.
Oh yeah, the little known guy.
He encourages them to rally the troops before they lose heart and run into the city. After all, the two of them are in joint command.
Why is Aeneas in command? He doesn't deserve this. So far, all we've seen him do is run away.
Helenus asks Hector to go into Troy and get the old woman of Troy to pray at the shrine of Athena.
Sure.
They are to ask Athena to have mercy on the women and children of Troy and to keep Diomedes away from Troy. Hector rallies the soldier and then makes his way toward the city. Diomedes gets into a taunting match with a man called Glaucus. This Glaucus is the son of somebody called Hippoglochus and a grandson of Bellerophon.
Alright. Well, Diomedes asks Glaucus who he is, and as an answer we get his entire family tree, with Sisyphus being the grandfather of Bellerophon, yada yada yada. Glaucus also recounts all of Bellerophon's exploits. We are not going to do that here. See episode 25 for more details. Anyway, the takeaway here is that Bellerophon settles down and has 3 kids. One of them sleeps with Zeus and had Sarpedon, who we also see, but only Hippolochus survives, and he becomes the father of this Glaucus. After all of this, Diomedes says that, well, his grandfather and Bellerophon, so Glaucus's grandfather, were friends. So they agree not to fight out of respect of their grandfather's friendships and swap armour. The text explicitly says that Zeus must have made Glaucus stupid, as he gives Diomedes a set of gold armour in return for a bronze set, apparently only 9% as valuable. So hey, I mean, some good auctioneering on the battlefield today.
Yeah. Well, cut back to Hector who is at the gates of Troy. He gets mobbed by Trojan women asking whether their male relatives are okay. I don't know if he answers them or not because he just managed to make his way to the palace, probably just be like, shush, go away, woman.
Oh good, Hector's one of those. I seem to remember he swats them away, but I'm not entirely sure. We can assume he says some words.
Like, shush, woman. The palace has a main section with 50 different rooms. Sounds like a nice place. One for each son of Priam and their wife. Priam has 50 sons.
Yeah, we dealt with that. I mean, he had quite a few with Hecabe, but then he had just loads with loads of different women. That must be a weird dynamic if you're a daughter-in-law of Priam.
Hector runs into Hecabe and Laodice, his mother and sister, who ask him why he's here. Rude. Not even nice to see you. Like, why are you here?
I don't think it's phrased quite like that. I think there are more niceties. You know, he's made his way through the palace to the opposite side of the courtyard at this point. It's not just, oi, Hector, go away, go fight.
His mother tries to get wine for him, but Hector refuses it and asks her to sacrifice to Athena to keep Diomedes out of the city.
Smart move. Diomedes is scary. Well, Hecabe bustles off to arrange it, while Hector makes his way to Paris's house. Now, this is not an apartment in the royal palace, because it was next to the palace and Paris had built it himself. Well, the people he hired did. Anyway, Hector steps inside. By the way, there's a funny detail at this point. The text specifies he's carrying a spear 11 cubits long. Now, I couldn't let this go, so I looked this up, and a cubit in ancient Greece is 46 centimetres, so he's carrying a spear just under 5 metres long into his brother's house. You could probably make a comedy scene out of that moment with him turning round to address people and dragging the spear across the ceiling.
I guess.
Anyway, he finds Paris in the bedroom, looking after his weapons while Helen sits next to him. When Hector sets eyes on his brother, he reprimands him for being in Troy while the others fight, and to get out there right this minute, young man, I'm not joking. Paris counters that he's not having a sulk or anything, which makes me think he's absolutely having a sulk, and that Helen has been telling him the same thing. In fact, just let him get his armour on and he'll be ready. Helen also tries to soothe Hector's anger by reprimanding herself for the terrible evil she did of being abducted, and that it was better Zeus had killed her when she was born. Ah yes, all of this is definitely her fault. Anyway, Hector tells Paris to catch him up and leaves. Now, this next scene is where we get the inspiration for today's episode, the very sweet love scene which inspired the whole chant of Hector and Andromache sitting in tree. Kissing.
Yeah, you're British.
I hope that's applicable elsewhere, or else this bit is just going to be very weird and confusing for most of our audience. So he tries to call in on his wife Andromache, but finds she isn't at home, but instead at the tower with their child. Hector scurries over there and runs into her, carrying their son Astyanax. As soon as he sees his son, Hector begins to smile. Andromache, however, weeps, saying that her husband being brave will be his death, presumably just stay here and be calm. He's being thoughtless and not thinking about the widow and bereaved son he will leave behind if he dies, and after all, Hector is all she has left. She tells him to just stay on the tower with them and raise the Trojan spirits from there, from safety behind the wall. Hector, however, refuses, saying he couldn't look his men in the eye if he didn't fight amongst them, but instead just hid in the city. It's just not in his blood, he's a soldier. He also knows that Troy will someday be destroyed, as will Priam and his family. However, at the end of his speech, he stretches out his hands to take Astyanax into his arms. The boy is afraid of his father's helmet and shrinks back. I imagine a small baby at this point, just looking with huge eyes at the helmet. Hector and Andromache laugh, I imagine sweetly, and Hector takes his helmet off and puts it on the ground, taking his son. He kisses Astyanax and plays with him while holding him in his arms, praying to the gods that his boy will be as strong as his daddy and a great king of Troy. He then gives Astyanax back to Andromache, who's smiling while crying. Hector sees this and strokes his wife, I assume on the cheek. He tells her he won't go down to Hades before his hour has come, but he cannot escape fate. He's got a war to fight. With that sort of surprisingly tender moment of the middle of a war, Hector picks up his helmet and leaves Troy, while Andromache heads for home.
Crying.
Yeah, it's not as sweet as other love scenes, I will admit, but I was pleasantly surprised there was a couple scene in this at all.
Very sweet. Meanwhile, Paris has also not been idle. He gets ready and runs towards the edge of the city. In fact, he catches up with Hector just as he takes his leave from Andromache. Paris apologizes for being late and Hector accuses Paris of giving up too soon.
Seems a bit of a random act of bullying.
However, he hopes the god will allow them to chase the Greeks away from Troy for good. That's book 6 done.
Nice.
Now, book 7 begins with Hector leaving the city with Paris, flinging themselves back into the fighting. Athena is not happy and rushes to Troy to help the Greeks, but Apollo spots her leaving from Pergamon and meets her by an oak tree. It's really about tree today.
Yeah, I didn't realise how strong a tree theme there was.
It tells her that he has a better idea than just backing the Greek.
Alright.
Apollo offers to halt the battle for a bit, as they can always get back to killing each other later, and he knows Hera and Athena are merciless in wanting their outcome. Athena agrees, and they scheme to make Hector want to fight in single combat, and the Greeks accept.
Sure.
Helenus, the soothsayer, works out what the gods want and asks Hector to trust him and lead him. He suggests a single combat, and Hector is thrilled with the idea.
As you would be if Apollo and Athena are both working to make you want it.
He walks out in the neutral territory in the middle of the two armies, pushing back his soldiers. They sit, and luckily for them, Agamemnon makes his soldiers do the same.
Oh yeah, it would have been a much less climactic and cool scene if Hector had walked out and just got his head chopped off by a Greek who couldn't believe his luck.
Athena and Apollo, disguised as vultures, also sit on the field. Hector announces the challenge. If he loses, it is acceptable to loot his corpse, but his body has to be returned to Troy for cremation. Conversely, if he wins, he will bring the dead man's armor to Ilium and allow the Greeks to take his body.
Seems fair.
There will then be a mound where the warrior will be buried, and Hector's name will go on forever, where travelers recognize the site.
Oh, basically just, my name will live forever as the man who killed that idiot who fought me that one time.
The Greeks are silent and willing to volunteer.
You would be.
Menelaus, though, finally stands up, calls everyone around him woman for being afraid, which, rude, and he volunteers.
Yeah.
He arms himself. Homer interjects to say that this would have been the death of Menelaus had Agamemnon not held him back by his right hand, calling him mad. After all, it's reasonable to be afraid of Hector, even Achilles would be. Menelaus is persuaded, and so instead Nestor rebukes the men with a huge monologue about some other previous off-screen event.
Summary, Nestor not happy.
9 volunteers stand up, including Diomedes, Odysseus, and Agamemnon. Nestor makes them draw lots. The troops pray that it's either Ajax or Diomedes or Agamemnon.
So basically, one of the actually talented people.
Feels like a bit of an ego den for Odysseus, given I think the implication is like they're talking out loud, so Odysseus probably like, what about me, guys?
Oh no, they're all saying, oh, I hope it's not Odysseus, he's terrible. And he stood in front of them. His own mother is in the field saying he's awful at fighting.
I mean, you could just talk back at it and be like, and who gets a book next? Not you.
I get the feeling, I have this book vibe.
Anyway, Ajax gets the short straw, so that means he's out, right?
That means he's fighting.
Oh, okay. So it's fighting then.
Yeah. Sidebar, my versions have called him either Ajax or Aias, but I'm sticking with what I'm familiar with. It's Ajax. Everyone live with it.
Now, he's a giant of a man. There's a bit more trash talk and then they start fighting.
Nice.
Hector hits Ajax, and in response, Ajax hits him with such a powerful blow, it punches through his shield and somehow still managed to hit him in the neck.
Ow.
Yes, we're totally playing
Yeah,
theater.
We're miming this out. It's probably going to sound confusing on audio.
Hector tries throwing a rock.
Okay, I don't have a rock handy.
I'm Hector. But he hits the shield with a clang.
There you go. That's the whole budget for special effects.
Not really cool.
Oh yeah, we should mention he's here.
Go back to sleep.
It's okay. Anyway. Where were we? Right.
Ajax, in response, picks up a bigger stone and obliterates Hector's shield with it and knocks him on the ground. A presumably wounded Hector gets stood up again with the help of Apollo. They would have been stood there hacking at each other until Kingdom Come, except for 2 men who separated them. They beg them to stop, saying Zeus loves them both. They're both good warriors, and it's getting dark.
And I don't like the
We're
dark.
separating them.
2 random guys.
Oh, 2 random guys, okay.
I can't remember if they're named or not, but even if they are, it doesn't really matter. There's so many names, I've been cutting 90% of them.
Ajax answers that Hector started the fight, and he should be the one to stop it. Hector promptly suggests they stop for the day.
Yeah, odd that. I like to think that Ajax hadn't even finished the sentence and he goes, we should stop for the day.
Now, they swap gifts so that it's known that Trojan and Greeks can depart on friendly terms.
Nice. I just tried to kill you, have a daisy.
Ajax gets a sword, and Hector gets a belt. A purple one, if that makes it any better.
Oh, that makes all the difference.
Like,
if it had been a green one, he'd have been mortally offended.
The Trojan celebrates and the Greek party. Yeah, they don't want to say the same word for each one, do they?
Oh, they've started. Is this where the Greek language splits, do you think? It's not. Don't take this as canon. But imagine if it did, just because they don't want to use the same vocab.
Nestor then suggests cremating the dead and building a wall to protect the fleet moored off Troy, and everyone agrees.
Oh, Nestor is the party pooper, isn't he? Everyone stood around the campfires going, hey, we beat Hector, and Nestor saying, can we talk about the admin of the wall, please? Well, We now cut over to Camp Troy, as I'm calling it. Antenor suggests giving Helen back to the Greeks, given how much trouble she's already caused. What do you think Paris does about this?
Stop.
Yeah, Paris shuts him down, saying Antenor must have had his brain scrambled and that he will not surrender his bride. I mean, interesting definition of having a wife, just abducting this woman when she was already married. However, he admits that, fine, he will give back the stuff he stole from Menelaus. I mean, that includes his wife, I would argue. Not that Helen is stuff, but you'd think that this is a big technicality you could use. Anyway, Priam cancels that. At daybreak the next day, they go with this offer to the sons of Atreus, so Menelaus and Agamemnon. While there, they can ask for a truce until the dead are buried. They'll then keep fighting until the gods decide who wins. When the Greeks get this offer from Paris the next day, Diomedes doesn't want to accept anything that comes from this Trojan prince. Agamemnon agrees that Paris' offer is going to be rejected. However, the thing about the dead being buried is accepted. So, the two sides spend a while burying all the dead warriors. They're watched by the gods as they do this, and as they do what I now like to imagine is Nestor's big plan called the Big Wall Plan. Poseidon is shocked by the wall and the trench, which the Greeks had the audacity to build up without offering sacrifices to the gods first. Zeus rebukes him, telling him to delegate being offended by this to the smaller gods, so basically telling him to shut up and mind your own business. So, Book 7 ends with the dead being buried, while Zeus thinks and his thunderbolts crash in the sky.
Ooh. Now, at the start of Book 8, Zeus summons the gods to himself. He says that the war needs to end, and so if he catches anyone helping either side, he will fling them down into Tartarus.
That's the ultimate naughty step, really.
He highlights his strengths by saying that if all the gods pulled on one end at a gold rope, they wouldn't pull him from heaven to the earth.
Oh, divine tug of war. Let's do this. Oh wait, no.
Instead, he would pull them and the whole world upwards.
Fair.
Athena humbly accepts this ruling.
And
I think she thinks she's speaking for all of the gods.
yeah, I think that's the implication.
Zeus flies over to where he can get a good look at everything going on below and congratulates himself on his power. Like, I like to imagine be like, good job, dude. Give myself a pat on the back.
Oh, you know he's flexing.
The Greeks eat and get ready for battle, as do the Trojans. We get the standard description of battle until Zeus sends lightning down into the field. The Greeks quail and fall back.
Yeah?
All except Nestor. Nestor saves the day. Nestor is the actual hero of this. Whose horse is in trouble.
That's one interpretation of the Iliad.
He would have died at Hector's head, except Diomedes comes up and saves him. And he initially asked Odysseus to do it, but that brave guy was already legging it for the ships. He lets Nestor ride in his chariot with him, and Diomedes kills Hector's charioteer.
Nice.
Apparently he gets a spear to the nipple, which...
Oh, that's not a fun way to go.
Why did you let me read this? Hector is aggrieved, but quickly replaces him with another. The Trojan would have been routed by Diomedes had Zeus not thrown down another bolt right in front of his horse. I thought it just said to not interfere.
No one else can interfere.
Okay, so he can.
Yeah. The rules aren't for Zeus. We've seen that multiple times with various mortal women.
The horse panic, as does Nestor. Okay, he's a failure. Who knows this is Zeus is doing. Diomedes accepts this, but is hesitant to leave as it will be interpreted as him running from Hector. However, Nestor doesn't agree with this line of reasoning and makes the horse turn round. Okay, maybe he's a hero again.
Oh, I was so distracted with the idea of just the slogan, Nestor is a failure. Hector triumphs and heckles Diomedes, probably calling him chicken, because Diomedes wants to turn round all Marty McFly style and round on him 3 times, and 3 times he's met with Zeus's thunder encouraging the Trojans, basically telling him, don't try it, don't go back there. Hector orders his men forwards to burn the Greek ships to the ground, or to the sea, I suppose, to the beach, to something. We then get the detail that apparently his wife Andromache lavishes attention on his horses, which he says while he's urging them on, which is adorable. What is it with horse moments in the Iliad being adorable? Anyway, Hera doesn't like the way all of this is turning out, so she slyly reaches out to Poseidon for a secret plot to stop Zeus meddling. Poseidon, however, is not convinced. In the meantime, we get the Trojans surging forwards. In fact, they would have burnt the Greek fleet down if not for Hera getting Agamemnon to rally his men. He and his large purple cloak fly around, stirring the Greeks forwards. Agamemnon prays to Zeus, and his prayer is granted. He promises victory to the Greeks, which feels contradictory with what he was doing 5 seconds ago, and an eagle drops off a deer at the sacrificial altar, which is apparently an omen, and not just a clumsy eagle. The Greeks are heartened by this sign and rush forwards. Diomedes, for his part, is doing his best to be the first man literally everywhere, followed by everyone else. We then get more names listed as to who has died, and I'm not going to go into it. However, another one of Hector's charioteers dies by nipple-related injury. However, this time, it's very different. Want to know why? It's not a spear, it's an arrow. So that's all good.
No!
Hector's brother Cebriones takes over Hector's chariot. Please don't do that, you will get a weapon somewhere you don't want it. And Hector goes to attack the assailant with a stone. The man goes on to fire on Hector, but the string of his bow breaks. His brother Ajax protects him, so this doesn't really go anywhere. Zeus now decides to give the Trojans fresh courage again. So much for wanting the war to end, he's just flipping from side to side here. Hera is distraught and laments how Hector is a one-man killing machine to Athena. They want Hector gone. Athena bitterly recounts that Zeus messes with what she plans, but doesn't even consider how often she helped his son Heracles with his labours that one time. All Heracles had to do was whine in the direction of the heavens, and Zeus would order her to go off and help him, again. She says that, if she'd known this before, Heracles would never have gotten out of Hades again. Apparently, Zeus is letting Thetis get what she wants for her son Achilles. Remember that he's mad at Agamemnon? That whole prayer? Yeah, that's having consequences now. Anyway, she knows she will be in Zeus's good graces again in the future. Their plan is to show up among the Greeks to make Hector's resolve fail. Zeus watches them leave for the battlefield and summons Iris to tell them not to try it. He will destroy their horses and carriage and injure them so badly with his bolts that a decade of healing wouldn't be enough, is the threat he's sending. He's pointedly not as mad at Hera as apparently he's used to her disobeying. Iris delivers the message and, well, they turn round. The real theme here appears to be Zeus's big boss.
As they do, Zeus returns to Olympus as well. He rebukes them and Hera bursts out in anger, saying they feel bad for the Greek warriors and won't let them suffer because of his rage, so they will advise them. Zeus prophesies that Hector won't stop until Achilles helps the Greek again, painting a vision of a dead Patroclus and fighting amongst the vessels.
Ooh, omen.
It says that as far as her outburst is concerned, she can go to Tartarus for all he cares.
What a loving family.
Yes. The goddesses are stunned into silence. As can be expected, Hector encourages the Trojans still more.
Yeah.
He's carrying that 5-meter spear around, in case you're interested.
Oh, can we get a scene where someone distracts him? He turns round, there's 15 Trojan warriors on the spear. Whoops, sorry lads.
Anyway, he gets a standing ovation and he says he'd wanted to wreck the Greeks' fleet and army, but the darkness stopped them. No matter, they can try again in the morning.
Sure.
However, be sure to keep the fires going so they can see if the Greeks makes a run for the sea.
Nice.
He also specifically says the Greeks have long hair, which tells you something about comparatively fashion in Greeks versus Troy.
Okay.
They settle in for the night with 1,000 fires going, 50 soldiers at each fire.
That's a lot of people.
And this is where Book 8 ends. The Trojan campfires dotted around like stars, waiting for the dawn to come so they can renew their assault.
Ooh. I'm going to be the first to say it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going well for the Greeks at the minute.
No, it's not.
It's almost like Achilles' prayer has consequences.
Yeah. Well, that was the end of 3 books.
Yeah.
So, hope you enjoyed this and have a great week, everyone.
Have a great week.